Good evening. Welcome to the Wyndham-Raymond School District Board of Directors meeting. It is Wednesday, March 27th, 2024 at 6:30 p.m. and we are in the Wyndham High School auditorium. May I have a roll call, please?
Christina Small.
Here.
Jessica Bridges.
Here.
Jenny Butler.
Here.
Jody Carroll.
Here.
Caitlin Downs.
Here.
Marge Gavoni.
Here.
Joe Kellner.
I'm here.
Char Jewell.
Here.
Mike McClellan.
Here.
Lily Nugent.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any adjustments to the agenda?
We don't have any adjustments tonight.
Okay. Now is the time for public input. The purpose of public input is to provide an opportunity to address the board on matters specific to our schools and educational matters. All other comments beyond that scope are not appropriate for this meeting. The board will listen carefully to all members of the public but will not respond. Speakers are expected to follow rules of common decency and decorum. Interrupting any speaker or board member during commentary is not allowed. We ask that all speakers address the board, not the audience. Each person will be permitted to address the board one time during public comment with a maximum speaking time of 3 minutes. Sharing time with another speaker is not permitted. I will alert the speaker at the 3-minute mark. If speakers do not complete their comments within the allotted 3 minutes, they may submit a written statement to the board. Written statements are also accepted from those who do not wish to speak publicly. Requests for information or concerns that require further research will be noted and referred to the superintendent for further action if necessary. Discussions of matters involving individual students is not permitted during public comment due to the privacy, confidentiality, and due process rights of any RSU14 student. Comments regarding any individual staff, either by name or specifically identifiable by position, are not permitted. If the comment continues, the mic will be turned off. Complaints about any district employee should follow the process outlined in Policy KEB, Public Complaints about School Personnel, and are not permitted during public comment. We ask that adults share their first and last name in the town they reside in. Students are only required to share their first name. Is there anybody who wishes to speak? Seeing none, I will close public comment. All right, next up, superintendent's report.
It's exciting to have some honored guests here tonight. So I'm going to try to stay as brief as possible with my superintendent's report so that we can welcome some outstanding young men and their coaches and some families here tonight. But a couple things that I want to share. First of all, just want to give some recognition to some students at Wyndham High School. For years, we've partnered with the Lions Club to do a public speaking competition. And sadly, it was one of those things in COVID that kind of started to die off a little bit, but this year came back strong with 14 students participating, each creating a persuasive speech for 5 minutes, and then they were judged by members of the Lions Club. And thank you to Carol Hazard, who serves as the advisor for this, but top 3 speakers received cash prizes. So first was Molly Platty, who spoke about gun control, Bella Bragdon, who second place for abortion rights, and third was Ethan Chen for genetic engineering. So just congratulations to all 14 students for stepping up and taking part in this, having that opportunity to do some public speaking and to do it competitively. Just such a great skill to have. Something I shared with the construction committee yesterday and not had a chance yet to share with the board, but our middle school project went to the Wyndham Planning Board on Monday night and received unanimous approval. So that project has now cleared its regulatory hurdle. The condition of that approval is that we'll get all of our permits to make sure that we are meeting all of our legal requirements moving forward. And we are still on schedule for a May 10th bid. So a lot of things are going to be moving here pretty quickly. It's actually kind of fun to see a lot of the contractors now starting to look on site with some of the pre-bid meetings. In addition, again, for board members, anybody who'd like to take a walk out, the whole building has been staked. So you get an idea of where it's going to be, how it's going to be laid out, and more than happy to give that tour. The last thing is this has been kind of a year of very unique circumstances for schools and some very unique things for scheduling. And 6 months ago, when we were thinking about, hey, we've got an eclipse coming on April 8th, guess what? We have an eclipse coming on April 8th. And we have an eclipse coming that is 98% totality. And it is coming right in the middle of elementary dismissal. when we have kids on our buses and out and about. And one thing I've learned in this job is that we have policies and we control what happens to our buses and we control what happens to our routes, but we struggle controlling drivers that are out there at the same time that our buses are out there. And we have an extremely distracting event that's going to be happening. Plus, for many of our students, it's going to be a once-in-a-lifetime event. So there's been a lot in the news lately about what schools are doing, but tomorrow I have a letter going out. On Monday, April 8th, high school is going to be, and middle schools are going to be dismissed at 12:30. That will get everybody home in time, which then allows us to would be dismissing the elementary schools at 1:30. That will be all of our buses and all of our transportation will be off the roads. Plus, I think it's a great opportunity for students to partner with families and have the opportunity to safely watch the eclipse. One thing I've learned, and never thought I'd do a lot of eclipse reading, but that actually when you have 98% versus a total eclipse, there's greater chance for harm because people are more likely to look at it, and that 2% can do a lot of damage versus 100%. But again, we'll have a letter that's going out to families. I'm sure these guys are already on their phones and are letting everyone know in the high school that 12:30 on the 8th, that they're going to be getting out early after third block. But just wanted to give all of you a heads up, and that seems to also be the trend of every other district that is contiguous with RSU14. So that's what I have for tonight.
Thank you. Next up, board roundtable. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Go ahead, Joe.
With thanks to Jenny, who mentioned Odyssey of the Mind and the competition that was supposed to have occurred this past weekend due to the lovely weather. It has been rescheduled. There's a tentative date at the end of April. I'm not sure that's public yet, but keep your eyes open for that and look forward to supporting our Wyndham Primary School students in that. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, we'll move on to committee reports. Finance?
We have not met since the last time, but we'll be discussing finance-related items in executive session later this evening.
Thank you. Facilities?
We have not met, and we do not, at this point, have another meeting scheduled yet.
Policy?
Well, no surprise, policy did meet, working harder than everyone else. Jokes. So we did meet this past Monday, and we continued our work on our J policies. Happy to have finalized JICH, which is going to lead us into expulsion, suspension, student code of conduct, and a number of other policies. So we'll continue that work later this month, and we'll keep you updated. So you'll see a few of those on the agenda coming up. And it looks as though we'll probably have an opportunity to touch a few that are maybe a little further down our list, and we'll keep you updated.
Thank you. Curriculum?
We meet Monday, this coming Monday.
Okay. Next item, report of the secretary. May I have a motion, please?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the March 20th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
Thank you. Board discussion? All those in favor? Abstain? All right, motion carries. All right, moving on to student recognition. I'd like to invite Rich Drummond to the microphone to recognize for the first time ever our boys basketball state champions.
So thank you for having these kids. It's a nice little tradition that has evolved when a team wins a state title to come before you folks for some recognition, and it's it's been happening quite frequently in our school over the last few years, which is a great thing. But tonight you have sitting in the front row the 2024 class AA state champs in boys basketball. A few things that makes this group special. last year, usually when a team wins the ultimate prize of a state championship, usually you can see a progression, 5-13, 9-9, 12-6, and then it evolves. Last year, they were 5-13, and our head coach, obviously Chad Pulkkinen, I would be on the phone. Yes, kudos to Chad. I can remember making quite a few phone calls last year to Chad, asking him if he had a few minutes to talk, and we'd talk about tardiness and absence, and we'd talk about low grades and behaviors and things of that nature. And the progression really with this group was, yes, they became better athletes and better basketball players, but the progression was really with this group based around maturity and based about buying in, and there was great goals and expectations set with this group. And as the season started, you could see the progression and the growth and the confidence. And I have to look back on this, and maybe Chad would know. I don't know if I called him at all during the season. So the behavior around the school out of these guys, it's greatly appreciated. I'm not going to lie, sometimes you worry about a team, or you get a cast of characters together, and you wonder how they're going to act and things like that. And when they boarded a bus, I didn't have to worry at all about them. And that's a great big sigh of relief, knowing that when they leave campus, they're going to be representing the school and the district with class and pride. So kudos to you folks, and it's a great accomplishment. One of the biggest things and the key word when I think of this group, and I said it after they won the state title at about 2 a.m. in the ceremony in the gym, I used the word selfless. Many, many kids here could have been stat counters. They could have whined and cried about, I should be doing this, I should be doing that, this kid's playing ahead of me, this kid. I really have, I've been doing this a long time, 25 years somewhere in there. It's a group that really, they're selfless, and they made a lot of personal sacrifices for the betterment of the group. And I think as, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, that's very rare, and they did it for the whole and not the part. And that's kudos to the kids, but also kudos to the coaches, Chad Pulkkinen, George McCrillis, and Jeff Grigsby, who's here tonight. So just another round of applause for you for those things. At this time, I'd like to have Eric Bowen come forward, but before he does, Eric's one of our captains. He's a senior, and just a little glimpse of his resume. He's an honor roll student. He's a certified board official, so when we had to have interactions with officials, Eric took that upon himself and let Chad, Coach Pulkkinen, sit back. He cuts hair at the Crow's Nest. I'm thinking about probably trying him out at some point. He volunteers for Wyndham Little League, Wyndham Youth Basketball, Wyndham Youth Football. He has a job at Walmart. DoorDash. This kid does everything. I don't know how he can keep his grades up. Mentorship. But that's just, his qualities, and there's many other kids in this program and in this school that goes over and beyond, and Eric's just one of those kids, but they all are as well. But I'd like to have Eric come forward and say a few words.
All right, thank you. Thanks for having us here tonight to recognize this team. It's definitely a super special team. As you can see, it's the first state championship ever for this school. We're just extremely grateful for all the support, the whole entire community, you guys here on the school board as well. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to make it all happen. So thank you for that. We know that the school board sometimes can be forgotten, so we just want to say thank you to you guys for all the support you give to athletics here in Wyndham. This is a really special team, and I think the whole entire team really exemplifies like what it means to be a Wyndham athlete. So thank you for having us here tonight.
Eric found out that he had a speaking part at about probably 3:30 today, and all I said is, "You're going to speak tonight at the school board meeting." That's just who he is and who they are. So that's just a snapshot. I'd like to have our head coach come forward, Chad Pulkinen, to say a few words.
Thank you. First, I'd just like to, like Bowen mentioned, was just thank you guys for, all you do for our student athletes and our students here at Wyndham. As you guys know, you guys have incredible leadership at the administrative level that helps these guys and many other students throughout their course of their time here at Wyndham. Starts with Mr. Howell, goes to Mr. Karen, Mr. Rossetti, and obviously Mr. Drummond, who I deal with quite a bit. These guys are extremely lucky. I tell them that every day about the administration that they have as leaders of the school, and I think they all understand that. So we're very grateful, and we're very thankful for all you guys and all the administration here and teachers at our great school. Like Bowen alluded to and Mr. Drummond alluded to, this group was special. We heard a lot about our 5-15 or 13 record last year throughout the media and throughout a lot of people that talk about the sport. What people don't realize is in the unseen hours how hard these guys work. What they don't realize is when we lost to the eventual runner-up last year in the first round, these guys made a choice collectively, and that choice, will resonate with me for a long time, and it'll be passed on to every single kid that comes and plays for me. But that choice was to, do this together. And we also heard starless. It was a big word in the papers. Even after we won, we're starless, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. A lot of these guys could be very selfish and score a lot of points, and we probably wouldn't win a lot of games. But the way they distributed the basketball, the way they played together on both ends of the floor was second to none. And were there great teams that we played? Yeah, there were some really good teams and really good players. But our team was just a team, just as that word means and is defined. These guys were led by incredible seniors. Obviously, you just listened to one of them, Eric Bowen, who I don't think Drummond mentioned, but he was a McDonald's all-academic all-star, which goes out to one of 12 players in the entire state for his academic accomplishments and his on-court accomplishments. He was also awarded the Gary Randall Award, which is probably the most prestigious award the SMAA gives out. It's only given out to one person. It's usually for the coaches to decide on. It's really that kid that you wish you had on your team. So we write about that kid, and then all the coaches have to vote on. There's probably 7 or 8 kids that are nominated every year. So that's an incredible award. It's the second person that's won it in my memory here at Wyndham. So that's just an incredible thing. But outside of Bowen, we have incredible leaders at the senior level. Like I said, our captains, Quentin Lindsay and Blake McPherson, they all led a different way. Some by example, some by accountability, and that trickles down to the other seniors: Matthew Searway, Noah Maines, Ryan Smythe, Paulo Ventura, who is our manager. All these guys are just great kids who have incredible families that have raised them the right way, making our jobs pretty easy as teachers or coaches. And these guys will all be successful because of their work ethic and their ability to do what's best for the team, which was just an incredible lesson and an inspiration for me as their coach. And obviously you saw the community support. When things, not every year is a positive community rally, but this year with the basketball team and being the first ever, I saw a lot of positivity within the community that was just special. And like I said, it starts with our parents' support, obviously the support for one another on the team, and then the administration. It's a like the cliche village thing, but we saw that in the Civic Center with everyone that came out and all the people that were watching around the country. And I had people from Wyndham High School that live abroad now that were watching the game in Germany and Italy and getting all those text messages. So that gold ball means a lot, obviously to the basketball program, but I think it meant a lot to the community for a positive thing to cheer for when we were all Wyndham. So it was just an incredible season. I'm very thankful to the coaching staff that we have. They do a lot of stuff. I get a lot of the interviews and these moments, but they do a lot of things behind the scenes that not a lot of people see. And they're my support, and they're always there for me when I need them. So this group right here is extremely special. They go down as the first ever, and that's hard to do in anything. And for every generation that was able to watch them on this journey, I think they'll be impacted positively to believe, to trust one another, and do the right things at the end of the day, because these guys exemplify that in whatever they do. So they've grown a lot, they've matured a lot, and that's what happens when you're a teenager. And I'm just so grateful to be able to coach these guys and represent the town with such outstanding student athletes. So I appreciate you guys having us here, and we'll hopefully try to do it again next year. So thank you.
Chad hit on something. I forgot this group within the team, but he referenced the seniors, and this year's seniors I really, really enjoy, and I'm really going to miss you guys. No matter how, if you're having a bad day, I'd see one of them, Mr. Drummond, how are you? And they'd check in, and they'd crack some jokes, all good, but it really you were a lot of fun. I really appreciate it, and I'm glad that we have a few more months left. So here they are, and turn the page, and looking forward to what lies ahead. And at this time,
Rich,
Yes.
or I don't know if Chad, you want to come back up, but just maybe introduce your players?
And as I sat down, I forgot Benny Nziza too, who's showed up. So he's recognized as one of our seniors. All of these guys stand up because I like making them feel uncomfortable a lot. So Eric Bowen, the senior who you guys met. We have junior Brayson Freeze. Junior Grant Copy. Senior Quentin Lindsay. Sophomore Tyree James. Sophomore AJ Moody. Senior Ryan Smythe. Senior Noah Maines. Junior Joseph Blige. Senior Matt Searway. Junior Crady Dixon. Freshman Colin Jambrin. Junior Connor Jambrin. Senior Benny Nziza. Senior manager from Italy, Paolo Ventura. Jeff Grigsby, one of our coaches. And George McCrillis, another one of our coaches.
And did you have anybody that couldn't make it, or that's everybody?
Blake McPherson and Noah Estes are at lacrosse right now, and they're a big part of this group, obviously. And I know they wanted to be here, but I think it's probably running over a little bit today. So that's spring sports, so
Wonderful.
it's all good.
Well, thank you. Congratulations again on your well-earned victory.
Thank you.
So you're welcome to stay, but if you have better things to do this evening, you can leave.
I know, you can see that walk when it's coming. Do we get up? Do we? Yeah, good, they didn't forget.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a sabbatical leave request from Amy Engelberger.
Hi, everybody. I just wanted to first of all thank you for considering my application. And I think you all have a copy of it. Okay. So I'll just outline a little bit what my plans would be I'm sure you're most interested in what I would bring back to the school, the benefit. So I just wanted to start a little bit with current goals that I have around reading and writing. We obviously have units of study for writing, but for reading, I like to offer a wide variety of texts, and I teach GT students, so I try to give them, varied difficulties to see, show them different ways of how to approach difficult texts. And we work on annotations to understand. So in the unit, my goals would be to elevate engagement even more, elevate engagement and understanding, and to notice craft more. So my idea was to take this book that I absolutely love when I'm doing my own writing. It's called A Swim in the Pond in the Rain. And every time I read this book, I always think, oh, my students would love this, because they get really excited about learning, and I can just see them having a lot of energy around these ideas in this book. So the whole idea is to kind of slow the reading process down, and notice our reactions as readers, and sort of when we're reading a book, think about what keeps us going in the text, and what did we feel when we read something, and where did we feel it? And kind of, in terms of switching it towards the writing part of the unit, I think we would read these stories to kind of see what we could steal from these great writers, these ideas that we could take for them. So for the writing part, we would consider structure, and I have, a bunch of ideas written down, sort of a call and response as writers, to be more aware as writers, so what questions are we causing readers to ask, and then as writers try to answer them. And then there's a lesson called Heart of the Story, so keep asking yourself as a writer, what is the heart of my story and how can I get to that? And every part of your story should lead to that heart of your story for a reason. And then there's another lesson called the pattern story. So sort of creating an expectation that readers establish an expectation and make it recurring, and then slightly alter that to sort of throw your readers off a little bit and keep them interested in the story. But yeah, I guess it's kind of a mess of notes, but I'm happy to share this if anybody's interested. But I think the most important part of all of this is that I think it would be really interesting to create this unit, because for me, I feel like I'm never satisfied with the status quo. And I feel like my students are. We're always asking students to come up with goals, and just this week, we have conferences coming up tomorrow, and so my students have been thinking about their own goals. And one of my 8th graders, and I asked him if I could share this, his goal was to better understand the books I am reading by rereading and slowing down. So I thought that was just so perfect to kind of accompany what I'm thinking about with this project. And I'm happy to try to answer questions if anybody has any.
I will apologize. We didn't actually receive
Oh,
Chris
I'm
has your
sorry.
application. No, don't be sorry. That was my miss that we didn't receive it ahead of time. We will see it before next week when we vote on it. So we might be light on questions
Okay,
for that reason.
okay.
But anybody? Okay.
So none of that made sense, probably. I'm sorry.
No,
That's fine.
it did make sense.
Okay,
And just,
okay.
also just want to mention for the board, under the SESEA, which is the Sebago East Shore Educators Association contract, there is opportunity for the board to approve up to 2 sabbaticals a year for further study or for classwork or for independent study and projects. And I know it's been several years since actually the board has had a sabbatical request in front of you. But we'll make sure that Amy's complete packet, which has been reviewed by the sabbatical committee and has been forwarded on to me to then forward on to you, to have that opportunity and ask any questions. And but it's an opportunity to expand, and Amy has provided great service to RSU14 through her work in gifted and talented students, and has truly impacted a number of students in their reading and writing skills, as well as some life skills with working with some students. So appreciate all of your work and your efforts with that.
Thank you.
All set, thank you. Okay, and now we're going to move on to our A-Team Cost Centers presentation. And first up is Dr. Rhodes, principal at Wyndham Primary School.
Good evening. I believe I'm going to be brief because there's a lot of the same from last year to this upcoming year for the primary budget, and I hope that's reflected in the cover sheet that you have right there. What I want to focus on tonight specifically is the budget request form that I submitted, because that gives you an opportunity to see what we've been working on as a school. The goals that we've had, I've shared with those, I believe, in the fall, but they align well with our strategic plan, and we've, at several times across the school year this year, as a leadership team, taken a look at the goals. Where are we? What has been success? What have been some areas where we felt like we need to make more progress and put more focus on for the remainder of the school year? One couple of areas that I wanted to highlight just really quickly that I'm really proud of about our school is the success we've had with some initiatives this year that I've shared a couple times in the past. One has been our after-school clubs. The overall demand and participation level is pretty exciting. A program that started with 6 weeks and just a couple of clubs has grown to 2 different sessions with multiple clubs and teachers from all across our school staying after once or twice a week and offering these clubs. I was just amazed at watching kids just, it's hard to describe because they were glowing when they were doing magic with one of our teachers, learning how to do magic tricks and just learning not just how to do the trick, but how the trick works. You know, and you've got 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds learning those things, and I got to watch that, and I was just like, this is really cool stuff. And that's just one example. There's the work they're doing with Legos and learning about space, and even some what I would call enrichment and reteaching opportunities with things like our math and our literacy and game clubs. So I wanted to highlight that. Also, our student advisory group, I wanted to highlight that because it really gets to one of our core values about learners at the center, and the fact that we have a group of 2nd and 3rd graders that meet with Mrs. Jordan and I monthly, and just to hear and provide their feedback to our staff about what they believe about our school, what they like, what they want to change. Right now we're focusing on walking in the hallways. They understand how being safe is important. I agree. And they've really taken that on as work for them to do, and you can see that they're passionate about and they want to make a difference. So, and also how we're using our Wednesdays. Using our Wednesdays a little differently this year. It's really an opportunity to enrich the learning. We often refer to it as ideal learning experiences, but what it really is giving our learners more voice and choice in what they want to learn about and what they want to be involved with in school. And so there's a lot of regrouping of our learners across a house or a grade level, and everyone's involved, including our specialists, art, music, PE, librarian. And it's just great to see different things happening where some of the impetus is driven by our children in our classrooms. So by all means, you're all welcome to come down and see any of that happening on Wednesdays or any other day of the week. There's other kinds of activities that are similar like this, but we're trying to really focus on the use of Wednesday to do that. For next year, I see more of that continuing to happen, looking at how we're going to group our learners to best meet their needs, also how to include their interests, they're getting their voice involved in how they learn, just expanding on what we've started this past year, or in the past several years. It's also an opportunity to group learners so that they can learn those important skills for life. Like right now, we've got some groups of learners learning about how to have that growth mindset, have the kind of lifelong learning attitude, or learning what is whole body listening all about, and how to listen well at home and at school, and doing it in fun ways. So that's some of what's ahead for us. Now on to sort of the nuts and bolts of this. The budget for primary school that we're putting forward for you, and does include some additional costs for instructional supplies and curricular programs. Instructional supplies is really just that everything costs more now. And so to maintain what we do for programming, it just costs more. And we want to continue to maintain the program that we're providing. And along that same lines, we have curricular programs. And as a classroom teacher, I remember always being so busy in the sense of when it came to preparing for my classroom. And whenever I might have to go and borrow something from someone else, that took time away from me planning. And so I value highly our teachers having all of the materials and supplies that they need to implement the programs that we have for them in their classrooms. And so some of this money does include just making sure that they're not spending their quality time borrowing things from peers. I really want to make sure if we have 12 classrooms at a grade level, that they have the necessary materials in all 12 of those classrooms to properly instruct. Excuse me. Some decreases. Give you a little history on this one. Last year, the budget we're currently in, we budgeted for 42 classrooms. Due to the enrollment at kindergarten, we did not need 12 kindergartens. We only needed 11, and that's something that Mr. Howe and I discussed after the budget had already been passed. So we actually were planning to operate with 42 classrooms last year, but this year, we actually operate with 41. And for looking ahead to next year, due to enrollment, specifically at looking at what kindergarten is forecasting, we'll be able to reduce to 40 classrooms, which I believe will be which will be the lowest since I've been at primary. 40 has been our kind of our floor for the number of classrooms that we've had. And with that will also allow us to keep similar class size to what we have right now. So there won't be any adjustments in class size with that reduction. Thank you.
Questions?
Thank you very much. You had talked about the student advisory group, and I appreciate that because I highlighted that as a question. I think that's really cool.
Thank you.
That's great. I have two remaining questions. The first is a somewhat substantial reduction in noon monitor on purple 62, the first purple page. It's like a $31,000 reduction in noon monitor fees. I'm just curious the reason for that.
That question, excuse me, might be something that either Chris or I have to do some digging, because I believe if you go to your budget cover sheet, Joe.
Yep.
On playground assistance, that would be that group of people, it actually shows a slight increase from last year.
It's higher, yeah.
Yeah,
Exactly.
so it may be a case where there may be another line somewhere else in the budget that has shifted from.
We
I
take
apologize,
that as a
I don't-
follow-up. And that's all right. And incidentally, it's in one of the other budgets tonight as well. I saw a notable reduction, which was a question. The next one is probably a technical question, Chris, for you. The smartboard equipment, I was surprised that was in this budget and not the tech budget. Is that typical? that it's broken out. I'm on white 53, sorry.
I think I can explain
Yeah,
that.
by all means, if you have the answer,
Yep.
sure. Yep.
So, what has happened in the past has been a couple things. We've shifted this past year to having most of our classroom spaces have the BenQ boards. And so we have very few smart boards left in our building. However, what we were experiencing for quite a while, kind of give a quick history, we started the smart board implementation with fundraising. And then once we got the fundraising going, we started to budget some monies in the actual school budget to continue to expand that. Then we get to the place where we were implementing with all of our classrooms having a smart board, all of our teaching classrooms. However, two things we started to experience. Projectors did not last as long as the boards, so we needed a budget for that, and boards every once in a while would break. So I started to put monies in to kind of keep the maintenance of having enough projectors and making sure we had enough for if a board was to go in the middle of the school year. So that's what that money is for. As we move to BenQs, we may be able to have less in that line, but we still need to have something, I believe, to maintain having all the boards functioning.
And that makes perfect sense to me. I think my question there was the why in this budget instead of the tech budget. It just seems like an outlier, that's all. Maybe we can follow up on that one. It was something I noticed from maybe, I'm not sure. My last question for you was just something I noticed. I'm on white 54, looking at the professional tech services. A pretty notable increase here. It's actually the same budget, but a notable increase relative to what we've experienced so far with SEL and it says customized learning membership. My question on this one really was, why have we been so far below budget on the SEL expense, which is, of course, something that I support fully.
Joe, what page was that again?
Sorry, 54 on the white. 2/3 of the way down.
It's the same as last year.
Yeah, it's the same budget, but compared to what we're spending, it's quite a bit more. So I'm wondering why we're not hitting the budgeted spend, I guess is the question, phrased differently.
If I'm understanding your question correctly, there's more budget than we're spending, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, exactly right.
In the past, to date? Well, one, I believe that some of the spending for the social emotional learning is happening. It just hasn't, because this was in February. So I would say it's going to be closer to the 11,000 if we were going to spend throughout the year. Actually, that line in the past has been more, I believe.
Okay.
But the 4,000 to be the members, that's a pretty standard rate. That stays about the same every year. It might go up. It might have been like 3,500 last year, but so that provides primarily for staff to get trainings or to be able to access trainings either online, sometimes in person, to specifically support learners.
That makes good sense. And just to frame my question a bit better, and I've spoken about this before, is I think everybody knows that, I have a little bit more knowledge about Wyndham Primary School than the other schools because I've got a student there. And I continue to be really impressed with the outputs of those programs. It just want to make sure that we're getting everything out of it that we possibly can.
Yeah.
In closing, just say thank you. Again, with the previous preface, I really appreciate what I see out of Wyndham Primary School. It's a great place. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Shar?
So, quick question. There's a reduction for a social worker to 0. That it caught me off guard on the cover page.
Could you tell me what page that is?
Oh, it's moved to student services?
And Lisa's.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Go ahead, Jody.
I'm on purple 63 at the top. Employee secretarial's up 11.97% on the salary.
Something to just kind of point out on the salary scales, they're people dependent. And each year when we budget to the person. That's also, I think, why on the new monitor one, depending upon who's holding the positions and where they are on the step in the scale on the different lines. So as people move into positions that may have more experience, they may be more expensive, or as people come in that have less experience, they become less expensive. So typically in those salary lines, that's where the differences are falling. Or we might have a secretary that's picking up some additional hours, or we may have under budgeted in some summertime and catching up on that.
Okay, so it could be pushing them up into the proper, it could be a number of reasons. There's
Yep,
not
could
one
be
in
more
particular.
somebody with more experience than the person who previously held a position, because there's multiple secretaries within that building as an aggregate of what those are. But again, on the new monitors, it's actually a person-specific, because on those salaries, we go to the people that we have on the list, and
Okay.
so we have some ups and downs depending upon where they're at.
I noticed in guidance, it's the same thing on 62. It's, 8.8, again, it's higher than some of the placeholders, and that was in, I think, Manchester as well. So just sort of had in my mind around 6 as an increase. So those ones were outliers that we wouldn't typically see someone move into a big increase like that, generally speaking.
Depending upon step and scale and where we are in negotiations, because what you see budgeted also reflects money that's been set aside for negotiations, which would impact salaries as well.
Any other questions for Kyle? Great, all set, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Just want to make sure I've got my homework correct. So it's under the smart boards and some of the history behind that.
Yeah, so the smart boards was the question on just why this budget versus tech. It's not necessarily the number, because that makes sense. And then the noon monitor reduction were the two.
Yeah, the new monitor is directly related to people, and I will triple check on that, but I have who is actually holding the positions in my blue pages, which you guys don't have. So I have the blue pages that have that. Also, Wyndham Primary School was one of the first schools to do a smart board outfit at the elementary level, and I know some of the other schools we've done through ESSER money, and it may be a holdover from some of that time, and I'll take a look in it tomorrow.
Thank you. Next up is Beth Peavy, Principal of Raymond Elementary.
Good evening, and I just want to say thank you for your support. And this year we've had several of the school board members come and visit RES, so I know we're out there, but you can always schedule a time to come and visit. I appreciate that, so you can see what we're doing at our school. Our goals for RES are around instructional framework, professional development, and sense of belonging. So I'll highlight a couple of things that of recent that support those areas. We definitely have our monthly, weekly professional development at school, and we have focused around the instructional framework, which is our district goal. And our coaches, as well as myself, have provided professional development in that area for our teachers and are implementing that in the classroom. Along with that, on March 15th, our in-service day, WPS and RES worked together. My staff went to our WPS, and our coaches and my standard-based teacher did a wonderful presentation on monitoring to take action, and that's part of our instructional framework. And that was centered around effective feedback. So they have learned that the effect size, we want students to be successful and engaged in their learning. Different types of feedback have more of a positive high effect size, and some have a lesser effect size, and sometimes can be the reverse of what we expect. So that was really powerful professional development. My staff were talking about it after the PD day, and we're following up with a next session, part 2, next week at my school, and then a part 3, so that they can start actually playing with that information, having conversations, because I think it was just a lot of information on the March 15th, but now we're going to put it into practice so that they can use it in the classroom. We have also had an opportunity on the professional PD Day on March 15th. Wyndham Primary and RES were together for Ready Math professional development around numbers within numbers for pre-K through second grade. And also for third and fourth, it was around multiplication. RES, in the latter part of the day, had John Bear Mitchell from University of Maine, Orono, do a Zoom with my staff around the studies of the Wabanaki studies and how to educate our students, because we'll be looking at how we do that pre-K throughout 12th grade in our schools. Friday, he's coming to our school, and every grade level will have a 45-minute session with him on stories and storytelling. So that's very exciting. For our sense of belonging, on your cover sheet, we have a team that looks at data around attendance, behavior. We looked at our community survey and just, what is the culture in our building. I am proud to say that there is a lot of feedback that when they come into the building, there's a sense of culture, positivity that we're always striving for and that they can feel. We have a monthly assembly to honor our staff and honor our students, birthdays, celebrations, songs. So that does bring our sense of community. In addition, last year we talked about restorative circle, restorative practice. This year we have implemented the peaceful path, so that would align with our social emotional learning. And we have fourth graders that are our peaceful path leaders that will help with students with conflict resolution on the playground, but we also have a path that they can use in the hallway. So in addition to that, we are, always looking at how to best support our students because they are complex. They don't always come in with their recipe of what they need. So we have strong RTI team, and we work collaboratively with our special education team and to cross-support students as much as needed. So that is our goals. What I am asking for this coming year is in addition to a third grade teacher. Currently I have 2 third grade teachers. I'll need a third one because I have 59 students from second grade to third grade. And currently we do have just 2 fourth grade teachers for this year and for next year. Also asking for an increase from my school counselor from 4 days to 5 days so that she's full-time in the building. As everyone has spoken to, supplies and text lines, and especially for as we implemented K for Me, First for Me, there's a lot of consumables, yearly consumables, so it's just not, the textbooks or the math books, and so we have to replenish that yearly. In addition to, if this passes to add a teacher, we'll need materials for the teacher coming in. And you may notice on my stipends for team leaders, there's an increase there, and that will also be to support having more PBIS time, because right now my team leaders are doing both. They're meeting to make decisions for the building, as well as look at attendance, behavior, and there is a lot of work we still need to do. So there's an increase there. No decreases, sorry. Questions?
Sure.
So in going over your
Cover sheet?
request form, I'm struck by something that you wrote on the back of the second page, or on the second page, in relation to increase in school counselor. And it's something that I've actually been thinking about, and I'll just read it. There has been an increase of threat and suicide assessments in the last 2 years. We're talking about little kids, guys.
We are. And I think some of this is due to we are putting a focus in the importance of making sure we are documenting the information. We do, and you've heard it over the past few years, that we have students that are coming in that have anxiety levels that I would have to say 7 years ago we were not really, not to say addressing, but there wasn't that significance. I think we're getting better at identifying when students may be exhibiting some of those anxieties and worries, but we do have more children saying they may want to hurt themselves, and sometimes it's just out of anger.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we have to assess if it's, you know, a valid threat versus a transient threat, but it takes time to make sure we are doing the documentation. The district has a program to do that, so that does take time, and it actually takes a team. And so for RES, you know, I don't have another administrator, so I rely on my counselors to help with that piece, because it's a big decision-making, you know, when you're interviewing the student and students that may have been threatened and determining what the next action, what the next steps are to support the child or the children that have been threatened. Communication with families, it needs to be thorough, and you need more just than one person looking at the information.
So thank you for that, Beth. I think it would be important for the public to understand what some of the emotional challenges students are facing today, not just at RES, but all the schools. So if we could consider putting a presentation on a future agenda to talk about some statistics and just general information about what's going on in the schools. Because you know, if I wasn't on the school board, I would be blissfully ignorant of what the challenges are in our schools, and I think probably a lot of people out there are blissfully ignorant. And so I think that, you know, when we're putting forth a budget increase request for staff to support students that are having these issues, it's important to do some education surrounding that so that our community understands not only what administration and staff are handling on a day-to-day basis, but also what our children are going through, right? It's been a pretty crazy last 4 or 5 years. And so not only, you know, education loss, but there's some pretty good or pretty bad or pretty terrible, however you want to characterize it, emotional issues out there. So I think it would be prudent to do a presentation on that so that people can better understand what's happening on a day-to-day basis in our schools. Thank you.
Further questions? Go ahead, Joe.
So you're in luck. I don't have any number questions. I highlighted the same section Shar did, and I think what I want to say is absolutely fully supportive of increasing guidance from 4 days to 5 days. I mean, that alone seems like a no-brainer. Something that I'll bring up as we go through into our deliberations is making sure that we are resourcing social work appropriately as well across the district. It's a conversation that I certainly want to have. Can you talk a little bit more about? Yes.
Can you bring your thing closer?
Sorry. Thank you. Can you talk a little bit more about PBIS and what that is? It wasn't something I was familiar with.
So that's our positive behavior supports intervention for our whole school. So we have different tiers. Tier 1 is universal, our whole school, all the structures we put in place for our school, how the students should act at assembly, you know, what are those structures, what it looks like in the hallway, what it looks like in the cafeteria. And so our team looks at when things are not working. We use Swiss, it's a data system, when students receive office referrals, majors and minors. And then we look at the data. Oh, in the cafeteria at the 3rd grade lunch, let's say, there's an increase of office discipline reports coming in. And so then we need to look at how do we restructure and reinforce students so that the behaviors change. So that's at the tier 1. And then we have tier 2 and 3 where we look at individual students if they're receiving tremendous amount of office reports and specific to specific areas, because you can drill it down to time, day of the week, where they are, is it in the hallway, classroom, and then start looking at how we can put supports for those students.
Thank you very much. The only other thing I wish we could give you is a bigger cafeteria.
Please.
On that note, just to fellow board members, I want to highlight again taking the opportunity to visit the schools if you haven't taken that opportunity. I learned so much in seeing them and hearing from the teachers and the administrators. Raymond Elementary was particularly striking to some of the conversations I had there really resonated with me. So anyway, I just thought of it now. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Jody.
So I don't want to belabor it, but fully support the conversation that you started, Shar, around that question. I think it's okay if I disclose my experience because it was with my kid. But I received one of those calls, and one of my kids at Raymond Elementary was involved in one of these reports. And I think that one of the things, having done a tremendous amount of intervention at a pretty high level with respect to social work and interventions in our personal life, I just wanted to provide at least a testimonial that I was very surprised how much work had gone into that process for something that, to be straight, as a parent, we were able to talk about in 60 seconds at home because of where we were at. That's not always the case with families. But for a transient comment that none of us might think much of, the amount of work that has to be done to even get to the point where a parent gets a phone call is not insignificant. So I appreciated that, because thinking about it after the phone call, there's always this idea that things aren't taken seriously and that if we miss something, So having said that, I wanted to just support what Joe said around the social work piece. Want to continue to bring this up. I mean, we've lost some because of Sweetser. We're just not there as far as where we need to be. So I'm going to continue to advocate for any surplus we get after our health benefit quotes come in to allocate as a top line request for student services to put the resource specifically in the buildings that lost it because of that contract, and also for where there's none, which in this case is in the 2 Raymond schools. It's not coverage. So just wanted to say that. And then also, Chris, it may be unfair to ask, but can you help me understand the threshold for assistant principal or administrative support? Where does that come in, just in our district in general, for number of students and just top line on that?
First of all, there is a social worker in Raymond that's split between the two, but under EPS, the threshold, I think, is 300 to 1 is typically where an administrator might be. In addition, we typically in the district have run 200 to 1 in Manchester. Wyndham Primary, though, is 450 to 1, or not 450, 350 to 1. Wyndham High School is, 330 to 1, so the ratios do go. It is something that we do need to talk about, especially as when we're going to be in one school in Raymond, that it would be best for us to have 2 administrators up there when we reduce to one school. It is something that we've talked about and was an initial discussion in the budget process. And, it was one of those things that we were looking at. The administrative team started to put social workers and other things first at this time.
Any other questions for Beth? All set. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Next up is Danielle Donini, principal of Manchester Elementary.
Hi, thanks for having me. I could just pretty much, being third, say everything Beth just said, almost to the T. And I know this is not our opportunity to do the school update that we do later in the year, so I won't say all the awesome things that we've been doing. But our two core goals this year do parallel the district goals and what Kyle said and what Beth said. In terms of our instructional framework, really drilling down into the framework, if you think of it as a gradual release model from strong direct instruction, then that guided instruction where the teacher is cueing students and asking really strategic questions to engage their thinking and their prerequisite knowledge. And then that collaborative piece that our coaches and our math program, our writing program really rely a lot on the collaborative work. We've been doing a lot of work around project-based learning, tapping into student engagement, student voice, and interest-based projects. So we've done a lot with that. And I would say this year, a new lens we have taken in the gradual release model, the last thing after the collaborative piece is, and they don't always go in order, like it's not always last, but there is that independent practice piece of applying learning, practicing something on your own independently. And we surveyed all our teachers, and really, if you unpack the framework, there are many, many aspects of it. And so we surveyed everyone around what is your first priority right now for professional development, because we didn't want it to feel like we were throwing spaghetti at the wall. We wanted to be strategic, and we learned from our work that was really focused on teacher clarity for 3 years, that it really paid off, but we had to be super focused. So we wanted to replicate that. So teachers went through the survey, and they told us loud and clear that we needed to help them to help students to be more independent and to persevere. You could call it grit. There's a lot of research about grit, perseverance, independence. So that's how we dug into the framework. We had awesome coaching with the Great Schools Partnership on our workshop day. We provided a lot of structures and protocols for teachers to dig into the research and resources and nice chunks of their own group and individual planning time to apply that learning. So that was really, that was our work focused on the framework, building on what we've done in prior years. And then our goal around belonging, which sort of was a springboard from the whole child perspective, and equity. And this year we're really looking through a lens of every person that comes into the school, staff included and board members who visit, and every child feels that they really belong there. And we have done a lot of work with that. Similar to what Beth said about restorative practices, we did that work, and it's really taken off across classrooms, and I could talk more about that in an update, but we have done also some grade level based projects where teachers have had the freedom to really be creative about they took some data from their students, just simple little, I feel like I belong in this class, I feel like teachers really know me, I feel like I have a friend, and then we dug into the data, and there were pretty solid data that mirrored our district data that we did last June, I think it was, or May. But there were some students who didn't feel like people knew them really well and that they had a strong network. So we set the teachers off to brainstorm what could we do to improve upon that. And both 5th and 4th grades separately came up with projects to give kids an opportunity to cross classrooms, to meet with other peers, to do interest-based activities. So 5th grade calls it Fun Friday, and they pioneered it and learned along the way what worked and what didn't work. But we have volunteers coming in to teach knitting and crocheting and all different things, origami and crafts and painting and drawing graphic cartoons and just all these different things that students could sign up for, and that let them cross with other students that they maybe never see because they're not on the same recess. So we're trying to build the sense of community and belonging. That went really well. There were some bumps in the road, organizationally. The 4th grade, being the second group to do this action research, they added the layer of learning from what the 5th grade did, but then they actually built upon it, and they incorporated under the leadership of Leah Richards, who was interning with me. She's a fourth grade teacher, but she was doing her internship in admin. So she shepherded that project, and they decided to incorporate the social emotional learning piece into it and the restorative aspect of it. So if a student was having a challenge with, say, communication or following a rule or something, they would have an opportunity to have a restorative circle, not the whole time. They still got to go do the fun thing, but so it's sort of like this iterative process that went back and forth across the school. Fifth grade started it, fourth grade took what they learned and built upon it. Now fifth grade's revamping it based on what the fourth grade shared on the workshop day. So it's really cool. And the one thing I love about it, in terms of as kids get older, we really start to notice them noticing sort of that class system in terms of wealth and prosperity and resources and who has and who maybe doesn't have. And we wanted to be sure that the things we were offering for engagement and enrichment and belongingness were built right into the school day. So not after school, so everybody was part of it. So it was messy, but the kids really like it. The teachers were proud of what came out of it, and we will keep building on that. I'll jump into the budget. Mine is kind of straightforward. If you remember last year, if you were part of the board last year, we had increased a teacher, so we went up to 10 fourth grades and 10 fifth grades. So we had 20 homeroom classrooms, and that was the first time in some number of years that we've had full, because that's kind of full in terms of rooms that we have. But we knew there was sort of a bubble, so we put in a one-year position at that time, and this year we can decrease fourth grade by one teacher and still maintain good class size. Fifth grade would stay at 10. The other things are similar to what you've heard from others. Increasing some money for in the library. We did lose a lot of books through the pandemic because books went home and then we were all doing remote, and we did lose a lot of books. Increasing supply lines, our textbook line, a little bit in art and phys ed. And I would just say in the textbook and supply line, we don't buy science textbooks anymore. We don't buy social studies books. We have projects and consumable materials that, then you have to either go to Ruth's and hope you find them. But sometimes you just have to buy this stuff. We don't we're kind of getting away from all 20 students reading the same book at the same time because, as you've heard, the span of students' readiness on their instructional level is so spread out that having one book for everyone doesn't make sense. So we really need to spend a little more money buying 5 copies of this book and 5 of this book and 4 of this book, not 200 of one book that meets everybody's needs. So those are the increases and the reasons, and I think that's it.
Questions?
So thanks, Danielle. In your budget, I noticed a 0.5 FTE decrease in playground assistant, which did align with the budget number. I'm just curious the reason for that.
I am too. I think.
Okay.
I think it's because we haven't been able to fill the position for 2 years.
I see.
We would love to, and we really we do need a person. We have reposted it, and we'll continue to try, and it's not a huge number, and I'm pretty confident that if we were able to find a qualified person, that we would probably be able to find that money somewhere, because it's a huge help, and it's really important for safety.
Yeah. I would just suggest maybe we keep that as a parking lot item to revisit as we deliberate. I'm glad you brought up the library. That was something in our tour that was brought up, is the shortage of books in your facility. I think that's great.
And we just had a book fair, which that
Awesome.
provides some money out. I think it was $3,000 that doesn't live in this line, but we'll be spending that in alignment with the new policy once we learn all about that.
Excellent. The last thing I would say is I'm just disappointed my oldest will only get 1 year in your school, because I think it's a great place. So thank you very much.
Anyone else? All right, thank you very much.
Thanks.
And last but not least, Mr. Nash.
It's a familiar position for me, right? Coming up. And I promise to make it quick. And thank you for this time. We've actually run the gamut of pre-K to adult in their system here. Well, thank you. I just want to state for you and for the public that what our mission is, and I think everything that we're talking about tonight in terms of the increases and decreases in my budget flow through that mission. Wyndham Raymond Adult Education provides affordable, high-quality adult learning opportunities that meet the academic, career, and personal pursuits of our diverse adult population, families, workers, citizens, and the business community. So my increases and decreases there's a balancing game with adult ed. We don't know who's going to come through our doors. Much unlike the day school, they can pretty well maybe understand that from year to year what their enrollment might be. We don't know. So the major increases in my program really are as a result of our increase in ESOL or MLL population, English for speakers of other languages or multilingual learners. We are seeing, we just saw 3 new students come in this week. Every few weeks we see 2 or 3 more students coming through our doors. We currently have 89 students in that program. We have a total of 135 students in our academic program. 33 of those students are working towards the high school credential. 8 students have graduated so far. So again, we have to just balance our budget, balance the needs within our budget, when looking at the people that come through our door. So my increases really are not only just the salary and benefit increases for the administrators and the coordinators, it's the increase that we're looking to put in place to serve the anticipated increase in enrollments from our ESOL MLO population. The unfortunate side of that is that we have some challenges. Much like the K-12 or pre-K-12 system, we had some ESSER funds, some ARPA funds that we were using to increase the offerings for that population. That is sunsetting. The other challenge that I've shared with Christine and Chris is that we receive federal funds through the AFLA program. It's the WIOA Title II funds. So there are more students coming into our hub, there's 10 programs within our hub, our service area. More students needing ESOL MLL services. So the money, there's only a limited finite amount of money that's now to be spread out amongst more programs. So we will be losing another $8,000, almost $9,000 from that pot of money. So in total, we'll be losing about $30,000. So we have to make that up somewhere, or we have to find different ways of serving those students, or not serving those students with the intensity of services that we should. So our decreases really are coming in the areas, as I mentioned, losing some of the federal dollars. And what that's going to mean for us is just fewer classes, probably wait lists for our adult students. Again, less intensity of services, fewer course offerings in the summertime. But we'll do the best we can to make sure we serve as many students that walk through our door. So I was supposed to keep it brief tonight, and that's really what we're looking at is the increase in the salary and benefits, the increased demand for ESOL services. We do have some increases in our marketing and promotion budget. We went to a different type of catalog this year and with a different printer, higher quality, and it has really made a difference in terms of what people think about our program. It's a more professional looking catalog. So that was money well invested. Decreases, again, I just mentioned where we're meeting those challenges with the decrease in funding. The positive side over this past year is I serve on a statewide committee, advocacy committee, and we were able to get an additional $1.5 million for all adult ed programs in the state for FY25, and that meant an additional $38,000 for us here in Wyndham. So that's helped a lot. So when it's all said and done, our local appropriation increase is about $16,000, very nominal amount. So I think that's really all I want to share with you about increases. I didn't want to go into the minutia of a $100 increase there or a $200 increase there. But I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have about my budget.
Go ahead, Char.
So, Tom, I can appreciate what you said about folks that need help with English. I think it's safe to say that even people that are born and raised in this country need help with English from time to time, right?
Thank you.
I can imagine that the need for those services is only going to grow over the next several years. So my question is not so much for this budget year, but down the road, what are the long-term plans to increase capability for those services? Are we going to be applying for grants? Is there any legislation coming, Chris, that you know, that you heard anything about?
We're always looking for new grants. We scour the landscape. We had some United Way grants. We had, I'm trying to think of other ones. We had continuity of services grants helped us out. So we're always looking for additional pots of money that we can tap into for this population. We are still working at the state level to advocate for additional state subsidy. I am serving on a committee as well to look at the state subsidy formula for adult ed programs. It has not been looked at for, I hate to say it, I've been doing this for 39 years. It hasn't been looked at for 39 years. So we think that's going to provide some additional funding, some additional revenue for us down the road, so we don't have to rely so much on soft money all the time.
If I can just add one other piece, I'm not aware of any new legislation. I think the other part, though, is that, and it's Hub 8, right, Tom? That we're part of. So we're part of Hub 8, which is a regional collaborative for adult education programs. So one thing I know Hub 8 has tried to do is that also look at some grants together to look for additional funding together, but then also look at, I don't want to call it pooling, but looking at resources. And so districts that may have a program or programs within the hub to look at, I don't have it here, but maybe someone else over in Westbrook has it, and Westbrook doesn't have it, so I'm going to send them over to Wyndham Raymond and looking at ways to extend through the hub. And I know you guys work pretty closely together.
Yeah. That was the intent of organizing all adult ed programs into regional hubs, was efficiency of services, not only in administrative services, but grant seeking options. All the grants that we have currently have all come through the hub. So we continue to look at that model. But you're right, we do send people to different programs. I will pat myself on the back, pat my programs back to say that people come to us because they really like the services we provide. So they may not be able to get the services in another community, but they come to us. And I do know, we might have to look at not being able to serve people outside of Wyndham and Raymond, as that one other town in our hub is doing that right now as we speak. So that's not our preference, because people will go, they may work in Wyndham and live in South Portland, but they can come and take classes here after they get out of work. So we need to look at that, the makeup of those students coming to us.
Anyone else? Go ahead, Joe.
Thanks, Tom. A couple of quick questions. I was going to make a joke about the $1.45 increase on the college transitions project, but I'll leave that be. First question, a decrease in the high school completion budget. I was curious the reason for that.
Yeah, we are seeing more students that are really coming to us to look for the high set, which is took the place of the GED. So rather than having them take a 50-hour high school diploma class, they can come and roll with us, depending on how well they do on their pretest. 12 to 20 hours they can be done taking their test and beyond, and then go on to their next goal. So we're seeing more students come to us that don't need longer classes.
Good. I'm glad it's not due to decreased interest. That's excellent. Can you talk a little bit about how tuition gets set? I just don't remember how that works.
Yeah, we actually don't. We're not allowed to charge for any academic classes. So the high school completion, high set, ESOL classes, or adult basic education, literacy classes, we can't charge. For the other courses, the personal enrichment, we look at what the market will bear. We talk to the teacher helps us set that price. We do a 70-30 split with the teachers on that, so we keep 30% profit. And we do use, and I do have some figures here, but I can provide that to you at another time. We've done quite well, raising some additional funds through our personal enrichment classes that help support the other parts of our program. We do workforce training. That's set with the employer as to what they were willing to pay and able to pay, and it's also based on what the industry is allowing for that type of training.
That makes sense. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. I want to just call out the work you did on wages for the folks that are coming in to teach some of your classes. I think that was a good move. I'd also just say, as you look at working on the funding formula at the state level, keep us posted on that. I'd love to hear more as we get closer to that. And I would just point out that there's another legislative session coming up, or a new legislative session that will start before we know it. And I'm sure there'll be a push to have a bigger record of the number of bills submitted, but it's always an opportunity to work with legislators on making sure programs like this that are gems of communities get properly funded. So thank you.
Yeah, as a result of the last legislation that Jim went through, it was a subsidy study group was put in place, which I'm on, and we'll have 6 meetings coming up over the next 6 to 8 weeks within the recommendation as to how we can change that for FY26. Thank you.
Anyone else? We're all set. Thank you so much.
And I can't forget to mention our graduation on June 23rd, 6:30, in this very room. So please, I hope you attend. Thanks.
Okay, moving on in our agenda. Next up, Day 1 Girls Education Program Plan, presented by Mr. Howell.
Do you want to do a motion and then discuss?
Sure, may I have a motion?
Okay, let me find it, right here. I move to approve the Day 1 education plan for the 2023-2024 school year. Is it?
Current.
We're doing it backwards? Okay. Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Nope, board discussion. Go
Sure,
ahead.
love to get an overview, and this actually is for this year.
Oh, okay.
Just a couple of pieces of background. So first of all, board members, you did approve last year a position for Day 1, and just to give a little bit of the background, Day 1 Services, which is also with Smart Family Services, they did a merger a couple years ago, purchased and renovated a house up in North Windham, which is located right at the end of the new entrance that's planned for Manchester. That is a residential girls program for students who are dealing with substance issues, and students are arriving from all across the state. When students move in, they are considered to be residents of Windham, which means that RSU14 is responsible for the education of those students. And part of the RSU taking on that program is that for every student that enters the district, we are eligible for twice the state tuition rate for the students that are placed here. Some students have been here for 3 days. Some students have been here for 3 months. Our first student arrived right towards the middle of January. This was a program that was supposed to have started at the beginning of the year, but it did not because of construction delays and then also licensing delays for the program. And we've been holding off and approving a plan because we've been trying to figure out how many students would be placed in the program and what services might look like. So for every student who arrives, we go through a process of reviewing all their student records. They're high school students, so we look at where they are with credits. We also look at if they're receiving any special education services. Those students are currently being served here in a classroom by a classroom teacher who then works with them on what areas that they're lacking in credits or areas of strength as well. And students are working throughout the day, and they're here at Windham High School, but they're not attending regular Windham High School classes. We are working with a student on some electives, but again, students are here on sometimes a couple days, and sometimes they're here for longer placements. It's a voluntary program for students. They're not put here by juvenile justice system. They are choosing to participate in a program, and we're responsible for their education. So now that we have things settled and have things moving in, we are required to submit our plan, and I did include a plan in the board packet. It's a pretty simple plan, which basically every student who comes in will review their records, we'll develop a plan, and then also we're working with a licensed facility. So by approving this plan, it then allows that subsidy to be reimbursed back to the district for every student that enrolls.
Chris, do we have to do this every year? Is it a one-shot deal that you?
We're going to have to do this now every year. Yep.
Okay.
It will be something that we'll add, and looking to the future, now the program's up and running, will probably be a September vote versus now.
Further questions? Go ahead, Char.
Just for a point of clarification, I believe I already know the answer to this, but just, this program is outside of the scope of Katahdin, correct?
Correct. This is run by Day One, which is a private, a nonprofit substance addiction program. But we work very, very closely with the program to make sure that our students that are now our students, that their educational needs are being met.
Thank you.
Further questions? Okay, all those in favor? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is budget discussion. So can you give us the current version of the budget, kind of overall?
Sure. So you've had a chance now to hear from all the different cost centers, and the budget that you have in front of you that is your, I think that was an empty, never been interrupted by an empty bottle before. It's kind of fun. The budget that you have in front of you represents a 6.7% increase. And if you remember back, there's a couple things that are driving the increase this year. It's a larger increase than we've had in past years. So things that are driving it, first of all, new Maine paid leave law. There's an additional $300,000 that the district will be required to match in employee contributions to cover the new pot of money that will be established for Maine paid leave. And when you think about our budget, every percentage point on the budget is roughly $580,000. So $300,000 is what, 0.75%, 0.7%. Also remember, for driving forces right now is that we've seen an increase in supplies. We've seen an increase in heating costs. Electricity costs have been another driver. Also, we are in the midst of negotiations, and the negotiations team that's going to give you an update here in a little bit has been working to make sure that our staff is being paid a fair and competitive wage when you look at our peers that are close by. I think you've probably heard in the budget that there are not a lot of new positions. In fact, I think the greatest number of new positions were actually in Genie's, which is outside, it's an enterprise account outside of the regular budget. So we have a number of factors that are there that are driving the increase that's happening this year. Just also want to add budget-wise is that health insurance is one of those factors that is a significant amount. Every percentage, we budget 10% in the budget for health insurance. Every percent that health insurance comes in under 10% is roughly $100,000. We received notification on Monday that the range of health insurance next year for Maine schools will be somewhere between 3 and 11%. Last year, if you remember, our health insurance came in as a 0% increase. So I am hoping that we will fall towards that 3% side, which would allow us then to look at either reduction of $600,000 to $700,000, or I know board members want to have a discussion about possibly reallocating. I know we often want to look at our peers, and if you look at budget percentages of surrounding districts, we are in line with everyone else is feeling the exact same pressures that we are across school districts. Over 6% seems to be the norm across, and places that it isn't are taking significant chunks out of existing strategic reserves and using them to either buy down or in some cases have received additional large sums in subsidy using to offset. So number of pressures, we're right about where other places are in line, but as you probably heard throughout budget discussions, I think every single administrator and everyone described that increasing social work services, mental health services. And again, you have the tough decision on the board on how do you balance that against taxation and where the community's at. Again, I'll remind the community, last year we were the lowest increase in all of Cumberland County. We've traditionally been one of the lower increases, which also means that if you look at our per pupil spending, we've been one of the lowest in our peer group. In fact, I think I'll have to go back to the chart, but we're in at least the bottom 3 within the 12 in Cumberland County. We're towards that. And this is a year where we're seeing some expenses and trying to play some catch up in some areas with some wages and salaries and providing those pressures. So I know the board wants to discuss and have a chance to talk through. I will not have final health insurance numbers for probably another week. If we're lucky, last year they came April 5th. So I'm hoping that we'll see those sooner or later to help you make a decision. And I realize the board is up against some deadlines for budget approval because from here the budget goes to the public budget meeting on, May 15th this year, whatever that Wednesday is, and then heads to the public for a vote. And that's where we're at.
Does anybody have any comments or questions? Any further discussion on the budget for tonight? We do have next week, we will discuss it again, and we have, I think, a third meeting at this point, kind of placeholder for budget discussion before we finally vote, but anybody?
Yeah, I want to share one comment that's probably multiple comments. I think first and foremost, this is my first round through this budget process, and just huge thanks to your office and your team for the work that goes into this. It's incredibly well laid out, easy to understand. It's a lot, and I thank you for that. And then certainly to the A-team folks that put the work into this. I really appreciated the cover sheets. I appreciated everybody's ability to speak to their budget and the degree of thought that's been put into this. It's well done. It's well thought out. I don't see a lot of fluff in here. And I look forward to talking more about making sure we have the right student supports in the budget as well. The one other comment I would make, this is a long one comment, I'm sorry, is the other number that continues to stick out to me when we compare to our surrounding communities is our per pupil spending. And I know we're not at the bottom and we're not at the top, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there's a lot of difference between where we are and the top per pupil spending community. So just something to think about, and I recognize as we look at this budget, we're going to have to think about it in the context of future expenses as well. You know, there's going to be other expenses coming down the pike with the middle school and other needs of the district. So anyway, the key thing here is thank you. Thank you to everybody that participated. Thanks for tolerating my questions. This was really helpful. Yeah, that was included in Chris's team, but Stacy for sure that does the work. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess what's resonating in my mind is thinking through Lisa Garneau's presentation with the number of students that are coming in through that CDS channel. There's some things I think happening in that we'll have to support that maybe have never happened in this district before, and I'm just thinking about any reserves that we have and really making sure that we properly support this tsunami of responsibility that's coming through. The multi-language learners we've heard multiple times from each of our administrators and district leads, and that's some unprecedented support work. So we're going to have to, I think, really dig deep on making sure that that is, in my view, the first priority for support, and that's in special education, not just social work broadly, but special education specifically under that responsibility. So just want to point that out and appreciate, Chris, your commentary and really looking at factors that influence the budget has been consistently thorough, and there's really nothing that I can speak for myself. I've gone through fine-tooth comb in every category, and this is only my second time through this process, and although we like to joke about fluff and other things, we have a board contingency that's very small. Year over year, the percentage of resources that we have left on a $56 or $60 million budget it's couch change. I mean, this budget is written and executed well year over year over year. And listening to the Raymond Select Board finance meetings, their open the door costs were right where we were, a little higher actually, over 6. And traditionally, Raymond Town's been fiscally very responsible, so I think we're right on with this. I just want to make sure that we really are hearing Lisa's team with what she needs. So that's just my only comment for where we're at right now.
I guess I'll just make the comment that, some others have too, that this is really a maintenance budget. With the exception of maybe the bar coordinator position, everything else was reallocated. We're just talking about we need some money for negotiations, we need more for supplies, it costs more to turn the lights on. I'm just a little bit concerned isn't the word, but we're going to have to sell it a little bit, I think, to the community, because it's a much larger ask than we've had in the past, at least at where it sits right now, without having added a lot. So that's just, I guess, the way things are at the moment for most districts around us. But just want to make that comment, and we'll keep our fingers crossed for low health insurance increase, and we'll go from there. We'll deliberate a couple more times before we vote. Oh, go ahead, Jenny.
I just want to reiterate the amount of work that all the administrators have done. It's a lot of work, and just as you were saying, the focus is on students. That is exactly what the focus has been. It's serving the students' needs, and I think we really, as a district, do a great job and get a lot of return on the investment. And by taking care of the needs of the students, like the BART position and the student counselor going from 4 days to 5 days and things like that, it's really important. And I think we're trying to do our very best with the money that we have and not overburdening the communities. And I think everybody's trying their very best. So of course we'll see how it ends up going, but I think we're doing a really good job at putting the students first.
All right, I think we're ready to move on. So next up, I need a motion for executive session.
I move to enter into executive session to discuss RSU14 contract negotiations with the RSU14 Board of Directors pursuant to 1 MRSA subsection 405-6D, and not return to regular meeting.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor? Motion carries. Good night.